So I should stop singing?
You should stop singing, yeah. Oh, wait, actually.
I can keep on singing.
Okay.
Sing. What?
Now we're live.
Now we're live? Why?
Because it's not ready. And then we get in.
They can hear you.
We'll just have it sitting there. Inconspicuously. Oh, where's that Brazilian rosewood?
Whenever you want to start.
We're good? We're good to go?
Yep, we're on the secondary camera.
Secondary? Jake, can you help me for just a second? I probably should put it right back here. Got it?
Oh, who made that card?
The 1 foot, but somebody stole the thing off of?
Oh, that's why.
Hi, folks. Sorry, we're never ready, but we are now. And welcome to our Saturday night.
Our Sudbury Saturday night?
Our what? Our Sudbury Saturday night. Look that up. Stompin' Tom Connors, another Sudbury Saturday night. Famous Canadian folk artist. My father went to school with him. Glad you're here. Tonight's topic is anything you want to know, based on what little I know. Frick's here, behind the green screen. Luther's on the... Oh, Frick, I forgot to tell you. Jeff's on tonight, so you got to arrange that. Okay.
He's calling in, you mean?
Yeah, he's gonna do a little presentation.
Okay.
Jeff O'Connor. I apologize.
Yeah.
So I got something really important to deal with tonight, but I'm going to save it till about the middle of the show. So I'm going to start right now by getting a question from Frick. Jake's here, by the way, with the camera, and I presume Ken's on. Most likely, you'll hear him. Go ahead, Frick.
All right, first question comes from Jerry in Canton, Georgia.
Are you loud? Because I can barely hear you.
Yeah?
Okay, go ahead.
How do you correct, this is Jerry in Canton, Georgia.
Hey, Jerry.
He says, how do you correct a misaligned riving knife on a SawStop?
On a table saw.
Yeah.
On a
Jake?
SawStop or a table saw?
It
What
says
brand?
it says SawStop
It's
specifically.
a nightmare. I'm not even going to explain it.
It's a nightmare?
Oh, it's an absolute nightmare.
Well, you know what? Jake says it's a nightmare. We've had that same problem. So my suggestion is to call technical at SawStop and get them to walk you through it, and then call and tell us what they told you, because
It's not an easy, it's not just an alignment, like.
are they hearing you?
Yeah.
You got a mic?
It's.
Yeah.
Like the alignment that they have for lining up the table to the saw, with the single
Precise.
pin.
Yeah.
It's very easy to dial in. This is just loosen 2 bolts and hope for the best.
Oh, really? There you go. It needs some work. I know we've had that problem just switching from full-size blades to thin kerf blades. In fact, I think ours right now is out because you run something through and you can feel the resistance of it squeezing against the knife. Sorry, I couldn't be more helpful, but I'm hoping you're going to be helpful for me. Next, Frick.
All right, next one comes from Dave in Minnesota.
Hey, Dave.
He says, what is your preferred medium for sharpening and why, i.e. stone versus diamond plate?
Well, the absolute... Are you going to turn the camera on?
Yeah, I'm ready to go whenever you need me.
Let's go. So I'll bring you over here at the end of my bench, and we'll talk specifically about that. I'll use a chisel just to make it a little bit easier so I don't take a plane apart. Might want.
I don't have video, Jake, from your camera.
Come on, Brick. You got one job.
It's working fine from my end. It's your connection.
Tell me when you got it.
Well, no.
How many we got on tonight?
We have 432. I think we're competing with the NFL playoffs, so it might be.
Seriously? They're
we're
competing
probably-
with us?
Yeah.
Get that right, Frick. Can't get excitement like this watching a football game. Hockey, maybe. That ought to stir up something. Tell me when you can see.
They can still see on the other camera. But
Okay, and you can hear. So my preferred method of sharpening. Oh, this is always such a tough one to explain because it deals with money. There's a good system and there's the best system. And the difference between the two is like anything else. The best is in a class all by itself, and the good system is it's usable. The good system is to use our diamond plate, our double-sided diamond plate. It's got 300 grit on one side, 1,000 on the other. You use that for two purposes. You start the sharpening process with the 1,000, and you prepare the 16,000 grit Shapton ceramic stone by flattening it with the 300 grit side of the diamond plate. And for all intents and purposes, that will do you just fine. But if you're fussy, are we on? If you're fussy, then you've got to go to the all Shapton system. How many do we have? Oh, we got lots in stock. Every time I say this.
Do you remember what his question was?
Yeah, what's my favorite system?
Yeah. Well, what's your favorite sharpening medium?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure you focus
So-
on that answer.
You're either going to go, where is it?
What are you looking for? Oh.
The diamond plate. Oh, there it is right
Okay.
here. So if you use this one, 1,000 on this side, 300 on that side, you would come in here. This is my fine stone. You lubricate it.
What a nice bottle.
World's best. And you come in here and you use that. You have to have diamond in order to cut the ceramic. And you flatten it. It's actually not completely flat. You can tell because
need
of that
more
mark.
water.
And then if I was sharpening this blade, we had the insulators in here yesterday. Just tell you real quick, take a pause, go over here. So if you're building a house, building anything and you live in a cold environment, I'm going to share something with you. This building was built in 1990. So it's a steel fabricated building, so the outside wall is a corrugated steel. And then you've got a little bit of space. Then you got 6 inches of fiberglass. Then when they framed it up, they framed it on 4-foot centers, if you can believe that. This was a retail store. So you had 6 inches of fiberglass, and you had a vapor barrier, and then you had this pegboard. Well, if you were to go all around the entire perimeter of this building, you would find that the tiles, well, they used to call them asbestos tile, but the vinyl tile is loose, out 3 feet from the wall. The glue's gone. And you can see how it has a dark outline of the joint line. Well, when we first moved in, we thought it was leaking from the outside. It was in the middle of winter, so any sunny day we had, we took Flex Seal. We went through, I don't know how many cans, and we Flex Sealed carefully all the way around. And because the wall goes like this, you can imagine if you stretched it out how many lineal feet it was. Still didn't stop the problem. And then Harold, who works here, smart guy, he's been around the business a long time, he said, Rob, I think I know the problem. He says, I think the warm, moist air is getting through the vapor barrier, getting through the insulation, condensing on the steel wall as frost, and then on a warm day, it melts, runs down the bottom, and comes out onto the floor. Well, sure enough, we did. That's what it was. So we fixed that wall. This wall we hadn't done. And the other day I was in here, I was turning at the lathe, and I noticed that the sawdust against the wall was wet, and there was some stuff laying there that was rusty, and the boards that were laying up against the wall, by the way, I cleaned half of it anyway, were getting wet, and I said, oh, I got to deal with this. So we have 8 feet, up to the 8-foot mark is this pegboard, and then above that is sheetrock. So we cut a 1-foot section out of the sheetrock, and the vapor barrier was hanging down. In fact, there was areas where the vapor barrier was a foot down from the ceiling. And with that pegboard, of course, that's as porous as that is. So the warm, moist air was going in, and we pulled back the insulation, and sure enough, you could scrape 1/8 of an inch of frost off the inside wall of that outside steel wall. And as soon as it would get warm enough or mild enough, it would just run down the wall and run it onto the floor and make a mess. So we came in and we had the guys come in and they blew cellulose insulation in that entire wall. So we've been cleaning for the last day and a half. Anyway, so the moral of that story is you really have to pay attention to vapor barrier and the way it's applied, and it's not a. I would never have thought that would pass through so easily.
Okay,
but
so here,
now we're
that's how we
going back
got
to
it.
Sharp. Yes. So 1,000 grit. Find the primary. Elevate slightly. Tight little circles. Do this on the 1,000. I really like the 1,000 because it's aggressive and it cuts fast. Get a burr. Come over to the 16,000. Raise up a little bit more. Spend. I want to chisel this wide. Maybe 10 seconds. Flip it over, remove the burr, and that's all there is to it. Now, if you want the back of your chisel to be perfect, you're not going to get it doing this. This is okay for doing the edge, but the problem is that this stone is not as flat as this lapping plate made by Sharpening. This is flat. So when you come in and you flatten, this is a 500 grit stone. It might be a 1,000. I use either or. Come in and you use this lapping plate because it's got glass embedded in, a diamond embedded in glass, and you use that to flatten the stones. Now you have an extremely flat surface. And if you go through and work through the back of your chisel, you can produce a surface that is flat and it looks like a single surface mirror. This is the best system. Now the difference is this. If I'm just using this system, then I spend $140 on that stone. You don't need any holder because it's nice and heavy. You buy this holder and the 16,000 grit stone, and if you have to do your chisels, you've got to have a 6,000 grit stone in the middle in order to step the backs of your chisel 1,000, 6,000, 16. If you decide you want to go with the best system, then you need 2 heavy holders. You need either a 500 or a 1,000. You need your 16,000, and you need your Sharpening lapping plate. And it doesn't get any better than that. You just have to decide how fussy you're going to be. Sorry for the long explanation, but that's it.
So the short answer,
Short answer is my favorite.
ceramic.
Well, my favorite is the ceramic. Yeah, because you can get an edge that it eliminates sandpaper. I've never enjoyed sanding. So if I can get a flawless surface off of a plane and never have to sand, I do that all day long. So that's what I say. Next, Rick.
All right. Next question comes from David Moore in Austin, Texas.
David in Austin.
Yeah, he says you seem to find all kinds of nice old used woodworking machines.
I do.
I find them very difficult to locate. What is your secret to finding them?
I'm in Canada. And General out of Drummondville, Quebec, was the primary manufacturer or the most prominent manufacturer of stationary woodworking equipment. Actually just bought, a couple of days ago at auction, I just bought another General 14-inch, number 130 thickness planer. But they went out of business. They closed their business right around 2015. They started in 1946, I believe, was the year they started. And their primary business, as best I can tell, was producing woodworking equipment for public schools. So baby boomers came home, and when they hit public school age. I mean, I'm 60. I was born in 1961, and when I went to school, you had portables. All schools had portables because they couldn't build schools fast enough. So, and most schools had a shop. It was part of the curriculum. And General made their equipment to be bulletproof, very, very simple to operate, and very easy to maintain. But it was also expensive because it was produced domestically. But big, heavy castings, just great stuff. So There's a lot of stuff, a lot of it's still in Canada, but it's all used. But nice thing about used equipment is, unless a casting is broken, belts, bearings, and motors are all easily replaced. So I don't even know how many pieces of it. We just bought actually we just bought a jointer made by a company called Poitra. I pronounced it wrong, but it was another Quebec company that was bought out by General. Beautiful jointer, 8-inch jointer. We're going to replace, we've got an 8-inch over there, Delta, an old Delta, which is a good machine with segmented head, and that's going to Bob Abbott, who's a combat wounded vet in Virginia that we work with quite a bit. So yes, I find it, but I mean, there's going to be more and more of this stuff popping up because if you looked at the baby boom population, that would be the reason why the whole woodworking hobby industry blossomed. The oldest of them, 1946. What's that make them, Frick? If you're born in 1946, how old are you today? You'd be 80 and 26? So you're 70, 74, 76. 76, 22.
Turning 70, see?
76. So some of these guys are getting to that stage in life where they're not going to do it anymore. And stuff's going to start popping up for sale, and there certainly is they're not being followed up by as nearly as big a crowd that's getting into it. So you got to be a little bit patient. But sorry, I can't give you the magic answer and say, here's where you find it, but it certainly is far more available in Canada than it is in the US. But you guys have some good stuff too. Any old Delta is good. Any old Oliver is good. You just got to stay away from the new stuff. Next, Rick.
Okay, this one comes from JJ Batty in Houston, Texas.
Hey, JJ.
He says, do you use the Charlesworth ruler trick on your bevel up plane blades, your low angle jack or block plane?
Yeah. Yeah, I use David Charlesworth ruler trick, and it's worth giving a shout out to David and showing exactly how that works, because it is the only way you should sharpen. And I used to get into arguments with people over that, but the bottom line is, check your results against the amount of time it took you to get there, and that usually determines how good something is. So I'm sharpening a block plane blade. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to set it down on the primary bevel, come up a few degrees, spend 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Get a burr, come over here, come up on the 16,000, elevate a little bit higher than I did on the previous one. Spend about 10 seconds on this one. At the end of that 10 seconds, I'm going to take a little thin steel rule. We sell these, they don't have any markings on them, which is nice because it doesn't give you that irritating vibration you get. Now, what's critical here is you always want it to be flush with the edge of the stone. So don't have it here sometimes and have it here and all over the place. Keep it right there. That means the angle will stay the same. Turn the blade over on its back. Now, if Jake could get down there low enough, you'd see that obviously the blade is only touching right out here in the edge. And I need to stay within 1/4 of an inch of this stone. And I put 3 fingers to distribute the pressure uniformly. I hold the ruler in place with my thumb, and I move that forward and back, staying on that 1/4 inch slip. Now, if you move in here, you're going to change the angle. If your ruler's in a different spot every time, you're going to change the angle. But if you stay right there like that, you'll end up with a highly polished strip on the back side of the blade that meets the little highly polished strip on the front of the blade on the bevel, and that prevents you from having to go in and flatten and polish all of the back side of that blade. Smartest thing I ever learned about sharpening, and I thought I learned quite a bit from guys like Monroe Robinson. So yes, now I guess let's go over here. So I would use it on, we'll go through the tool cabinet. I would use it on this plane. All of my regular bench planes, including this one, which is a bench rabbit plane, blade goes all the way both sides. I would not use it on the scrub plane. Now, the reason you can't is because the scrub plane has a radius blade. So if I set that down on there on a little steel rule, I get a little I would get a little flat spot right there, but I wouldn't make it all the way out to the side. So the blade of a scrub plane needs to be treated like you would a chisel.
Or an axe.
Or what?
Or an axe.
An axe? No, not on the back.
Oh, the back. Okay.
So that one is the exception. Little block plane, that block plane, I do it the same. I do it on those as well. I do it on this one. This is for mortising for hinges. These are scrapers. This is a cabinet scraper. This is a large scraper, and I prepare the blade of the scraper the exact same way. Meaning, you got a little polish strip out on the bevel, and instead of having to go in and polish the whole back, you just polish a little wee strip on the back of that. It works the same way. The change is nothing more than, it's be less than half a degree, so it's not an appreciable change, but it saves you a ton of time. What's the matter?
Mickey, McLaren peed all over. Bruce peed all over your head.
Oh. Was that Bruce McLeod? No. Little Bruce. Move over here. Never do it on the chisels. Chisel backs must be flat, whether you're talking mortise chisels or whether you're talking bench chisels. We look up underneath here. Now, I'm not going to get into it because I don't feel qualified to, but if you watch the video on Sharpening by Chris Pye, he actually uses a secondary bevel on the inside. That's worth watching because that really increases the use of a carving gouge. That's the only thing that would be applicable up there. Down here, yes on the skew block plane, yes on the little squirrel tail. I do it on this. This is a router plane.
You do?
Oh, no, I don't. Sorry, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't. No, I don't. It's too small.
Treated like a chisel.
That's treated like a chisel as well. Sorry. I use it on the shoulder planes.
It's not that it's too small.
Yeah, it's small enough. Yeah, it would be too hard to do.
No, it's because you want it to be flat. You don't
Well, yeah,
want
but
that bevel.
you could do it down there, but it doesn't matter. It's such a small surface. And besides that, imagine trying to hold that little thing on a steel rule. Yes, on the shoulder planes. Step over anything in here? No. Step over here. Same thing on the large router plane. I treat it the same way as I treat the small one. I flatten and polish the entire back. Okay, a draw knife? No,
You can't.
not going to be able to get that with a steel rule. I definitely would do it on this. This is another scraping tool, but I would prepare the back. I don't know if I can get it out or not. It's the number 80. So I would prepare, it's got a little bit of rust on it, but I would prepare the back on that the same way. There's this one. I would do that exact same way as I did the other scrapers. That moves us down to the
Spoke shaves.
spoke shaves. I do the spoke shaves the same way. Spoke shave blades. I mean, this is a small enough blade that you probably could have gone in and you could have gone in and done the entire back. In fact, that one looks like it was done that way. May have, but that could have been done on as well. Now, you're not going to reach all the way over to the other stone, but you're going to be held up. You're going to be up just that little bit, and you're just going to go forward and back, so you're staying in the same spot. Put that together. This is a chisel plane, and I do the back of the chisel. I do this one the same way, using the ruler trick. Again, you're just trying to save time. So instead of having to polish the entire back, you just do a little strip along the edge. What else have we got in here? We're not done, Jake. Where are you going?
What else do you have?
Well, I have an edge plane. Edge plane is done same way, just the back. Now these little planes, Those blades, I believe I prepared the same way as a chisel, meaning kept the back flat. And then your cabinet scraper, if I can find you one that you can see it well enough. That I do the same thing. I use a ruler trick so that you're only polishing just a little wee strip out there instead of having to work the entire surface. It works particularly good. And finally, this is a drawer bottom plane for cutting the groove that houses the bottom of your drawer. And that one's the same way. That has a little back bevel right on there, again, to avoid having to polish the entire back. And I don't think there are any tools in here that would be applicable to. So that's it. Next, Frick.
Next one comes from David G. in Ohio.
Hey, David.
He says, how do you sharpen an old hand plane that's a little rusted and small chips in the blade? Can it be revived?
How do you sharpen an old hand plane
that's a little rusted and small chips in the blade?
Yeah.
Can it be revived?
Well, so there's, you want to apply some common sense to this. The Achilles heel of all those old planes was those little wee thin blades. If you measure them, the typical blade on a Stanley plane or a record plane was anywhere from 70 to 85 thousandths of an inch thick. And a plain blade on a Wood River is 120 thou. A plain blade on a Lee Nelson is 140 thou, talking almost double. So the problem with those little thin blades is when they will flex so much. They'll literally flex under the pressure of your fingertips. And you have a little wee tiny bevel. So if you're trying to learn woodworking skill, the most important skill you can acquire, in my opinion, is that of sharpening. You want to be able to do it freehand. If you're dealing with a little wee thin blade, you end up with a very, very small primary bevel. And it's your primary bevel that helps you locate where you are. You need to know where I need to know where my primary bevel is, because at that point, that's 25 degrees. Then I know this is going to be somewhere around 28, 29, 30. And when I go to do my tertiary bevel on my finishing stone, I know if I find my primary, I can go up a little bit higher, maybe 30, 31. If you have a little wee tiny primary bevel, it's almost impossible to feel that. So big advantage of a thick blade, wide primary bevel. When it's thick like that, it's not going to flex on you. Not only that, but when you use it in the plane, it's going to be far less likely to vibrate than that little wee thin blade that was standard, it was original equipment in those old Stanley planes. So what would I do with the Stanley? And I don't think the blades were nearly as good. I would chuck that blade and I would get a replacement blade. It's not worth the time of restoring and using the original blade. You asked for my opinion, and that's what I just gave you. So that's what I would do. The plane, as far as the plane goes, they're easy enough to restore. Now I'm gonna reference you to a YouTube video I did, 32 seconds to sharp. That's not clickbait. Walks you through the sharpening process. I have a video called The Great Hand Plane Revival, which is we go through and we take an old Stanley plane and we restore it so that it works like one of these. Again, replacing the blade. What do if you can, even if you had to spend $50 on a better blade, that's the main part of the tool. The body of the plane is nothing more than an apparatus to hold that blade at a fixed angle so that it can cut the wood. The blade is the reason why you have the plane. So if you're going to spend some money to upgrade something, upgrade your blade. Okay, next, Frick.
Got a question from the chat. It's Nick from Delaware. He says, can you recommend an alternative to that skew block plane that isn't around $400 but would be well suited to use for dovetailing?
Yeah. So I don't know, Lee Nelson, why they haven't. They must be extremely busy to not be manufacturing that plane, because as popular as it is, I would love to have had a little commission on every one of those that we caused somebody to buy. But since it's not available, then you need to do this. And this works fantastically well. I was surprised the first time I did it on the advice of somebody, and I wish I could remember who it was so that I could give them due credit. So if I'm getting ready to cut dovetails, and what Nick is asking, it's Nick, right?
Yes.
What Nick is asking about is in prepping your board, your tail board, if you have a little rabbet or a rebate on the inside edge, I'll do both sides so I can show you. He's referring to this plane. This is called a skew block plane, and I worked so hard trying to get the shop clean today. My bench was going to be the last thing I got to. And as you can tell, I ran out of time. What's new? So I would come in here and getting this board ready. I would take my marking gauge and I would score a line all the way around my tailboard. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to identify this just so that we know. So this is the tail. This is going to be the outside face. So if I assemble this as a drawer, it's going to go together like that. This is the outside face. On the inside, I'm going to put this piece in the vise. I'm going to make sure that the blade in this plane, I'll move the fence over. I'll make sure that the blade is projecting parallel to the sole so that when I use it, I get a shaving that is uniform in thickness. Now you'll notice that I moved the fence over so that as I sight down there, I can see almost all of the width of the blade. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just tapping this to get it parallel to the sole. That looks to be good. Now I have mine set up usually this is already set. I have mine set up so that the blade is sticking just out beyond the edge of the plane. I would use my fence so that when the fence is locked in position, that blade, the edge of that blade is cutting right on that gauge line. And I would come in here and I would make two passes, okay? Nice clean surface, by the way, because the blade is on a skew. So instead of using a shoulder plane where you're cutting perpendicular to the grain, which often causes it to tear, your blade is on an angle and it's skewing, which gives you a much better chance of having a smooth surface. Now, when it came time to transfer those tails onto the pins, that little wall would reference up against the inside of my pin board, and it would hold it perfectly positioned, and I would go ahead and transfer tails to pins. Now, the downside to this is when you build a drawer, you have to take into account that because of that little rabbet, these are going to end up in a little bit farther, right? That's not going to stop right there because the bottom of the pins are going to be up in here somewhere, just you know, at the base of the rabbet. The wood goes beyond, so it just ends up.
Show them on a smaller drawer with thinner tailboards, with thinner sides.
Well, I think the point is made that you just have to take into account. And now this piece is thinner than that piece, and it's usually not a big deal, but on fitting a drawer it is. Now, if you can't get one of these, and they've become very rare and hard to get a hold of, and I don't like the other brand. So the option was presented to us, and I poo-hooed it at first, but then I thought, you know what, this actually works. So this is automotive refinishing masking tape. It's 5/1000 of an inch thick instead of 4, which most masking tape is. So there's painter's tape. This stuff is thinner, and it doesn't have near the stick. This stuff is stickier. So I would go in here with a piece of this, and I would put a piece on here, and I would put another piece on here, and another, and one more. So 4 pieces, that's 20 thou. Make sure that's on there good, well stuck. Then I would come in with my sharp knife. I think that's my sharp knife. And I would just trim that off. That's not a knife. And then I would take my marking gauge and I would score a line all the way through that tape. And I would do my edges, and I would do my face, and I would do my opposite edge. And I'd make sure that I went all the way through. Then I would come in and I would peel that off. Now, truth be known, I'd want more tape down here, but now you got a nice clean edge. And that edge will do the same thing as the other one did, and it'll give you that nice little wall to reference against. And the good news is that when you're done, you peel it off and you haven't changed the dimension. And I was surprised how well that holds. It does a remarkable job. So because this stuff is hard to come by, we now stock it on our website, and you can get it in either the 3/4 or the 1.5 roll. Really handy stuff. I have tape in my top drawer because I use tape that often. Invaluable. Good question. Great answer. I'll let you be the judge. Next one, Frick.
Okay. Next one comes from Gerald in Waterford, New York.
Hey, Gerald.
He says, can a Shapton 12,000 grit stone be sharpened by a DMT coarse or medium grit diamond stone?
So he means flattened. Yeah. This question is occasionally asked. What do I use? I'm going to answer this twice in 2 different ways. Do you need to flatten a fine ceramic stone with a fine diamond stone? The answer is no. It's not the scratches. So let's say you use 120 grit stone. So you're putting 120 grit scratches in the surface of your 16,000 grit stone. Now you might think of that and say, oh my goodness, you're ruining it. No, you're not. Because it's not the scratches in the 16,000 grit stone that cut the steel or polish the steel. It's the grit, the 16,000 grit that is in that material that happens to have scratches in it, which doesn't even matter. Now, can you? Yes, the diamond on a DMT, the diamond on a trend, the diamond on the brand we carry, the diamond on the Shapton will cut the ceramic, not an issue. But beware that if you're getting the one from us, the 300 grit, 1000 grit, the one thing you want to make sure is before you use it to flatten your ceramic stone, and I'm going to demonstrate this just so that there's no question. You're going to take, you only need to do this to the 300 grit side. You're going to take the 300 grit side. This is the first time. You're going to take, what do you got? Lubricate it. And if you're working with a diamond stone, you really need to be lubricating with, if you're working with both the diamond and the ceramic, you need to use Hone-Right. It's a water additive. We sell it on the website that will inhibit rust. And yet it's safe to use on the ceramic. Before you do anything, you're going to come in and you're going to take a piece of steel, whether it's a back of chisel or a plane blade, and you're going to go all over that stone for about a minute before you use it. Then rinse it off. Because, and I found this out the hard way, sometimes there is some, I imagine what it is, it's some diamond particles that are elongated, and you risk having them break off and get embedded in your 16,000 grit stone, and you do not want that to happen. So break it in. You only got to do it the one time. You don't need to worry about the 1,000 because you don't use that to lap your ceramic. Okay, Frick, good questions, by the way.
Yep. Zared Shower in Long Island.
Hey, Zared.
He said, is there a hand tool method for cutting the groove for the dowel hinge in the wood hinge boxes?
But I get asked that quite regularly. I haven't developed it yet, and only because I would envision using a molding plane. So you're going to take a plane that looks something like this, but instead of it cutting a square, or it's going to cut a radius. And it's a little bit funky because if the blade sat like this, it would just be a perfect radius, right? But as you lay it down like that, because the blade's sitting in there at a 45-degree angle, that's going to change the shape in order to produce a radius. So that's one issue. And then you've got to set up a way so that you make sure that it does not move laterally. It's doable. I just haven't been motivated enough yet to figure out a way to do it because the end result is the end result. Kind of my approach, where are those boxes I just did? Kind of my approach to my woodwork today is if something is going to be hidden, for instance, the mortise of a mortise and tenon. Here's a classic example. On this, right here, you have, this is mortise into that leg. But all you see is this piece meeting that piece. So as long as it's tight right here, you don't see anything else. However, down here, this piece goes all the way through the leg. The mortise in the leg is flared, shaped like a dovetail, this way. The wedge comes through, is split, sawn before it comes through so that you can drive wedges in this way that cause that tenon to open up to fill that wedge-shaped mortise. So when it glues up, it's an internal dovetail, very strong. You see that. So then I will do that by hand. But this one, I would do that by machine. So the question was about the wood hinge box. Well, here's some wood hinges that I just recently did. There's one out of Pacific U. It's not going to look any different if I did it by hand. Here's one made out of English walnut, where I used both the sapwood and the heartwood. Now that I'm looking at it, why didn't I do that? I should have used the...
You did it, yeah.
So that this was attached to that, but I didn't. And then here's one out of cherry. So, point being, if you're going to see it and people are going to admire it, do it by hand, get the credit. If it's not, do it whatever way works best. Frick, next.
This one comes from our friend Doc Bailey.
Hey, Doc.
He says, when preparing the backside of a new chisel, is it possible to use the side surface of my just arrived Cosmonized CBN 80 grit wheel?
Oh.
For the backs of the chisel?
For doing the backs of chisels. Oh,
No.
yeah. I wouldn't want to try to do that while it's running.
No.
And I have no idea how flat that would be, because, he's talking about, I think, so what he's talking about is this. So Jake went to work with the company that makes these and had them do both the side, the end, the edge, and this side over here. And I think he's talking about using that surface. Doc, I really don't know. I don't know if it's...
Your grinder wouldn't run... If you're talking about...
I certainly wouldn't do it. I certainly wouldn't try to do that at chisel with that running. If you were going to lay it flat and use it like a stone, you could possibly, but...
That's 80 grit, though.
Yeah, that's
pretty coarse.
Your chisel would have to be in bad shape in order to warrant going at it with that aggressive.
You definitely spent more on the grinding wheel than you did the chisel.
Yes, you did. Next, Frick.
Okay, next one comes from...
By the way, Doc Bailey is Vietnam era vet.
All right, we got another vet question. Comes from Ebby.
Hey, Ebby. And Ebby is an EOD. In fact, isn't Ebby an instructor now?
Yeah, down in Georgia.
Yep, Bonaire, Georgia. He says, in a case where a blade gets too hot while grinding and shows discoloration, Does the affected area have to be removed completely, or is it just a matter of losing a sharp edge too quickly until you finally sharpen beyond the discoloration?
Read that for me one more time, please.
In the case where a blade gets too hot while grinding and shows discoloration,
Yep.
does the affected area have to be removed completely, or is it just a matter of losing a sharp edge too quickly until you finally sharpen beyond the discoloration?
So, tell you a little bit about this in case you don't know. When Lee Nielsen was first developed, where's that chisel, do you know?
Over there.
Can you point to it?
Yeah. It's under. It should be around those two banners.
2 banners?
Yeah.
Up here, you mean?
Yeah.
So when Lee Nielsen was very first went into the, or ventured into the production of bench chisels, I was
It was
around.
with that chisel rack.
Huh?
It was up there with that little chisel rack that you made.
I was working with them. There it is right here. So if you've never seen the original, this is the original Lee Nielsen chisel. We changed it, fortunately, because this was not good. There's no markings on it, but that was the original Lee Nielsen bench
It looks
chisel.
an awful lot like a chisel made today.
Yeah. Anyway, so I had been so excited about getting a chisel that he sent me home with one that hadn't been tempered. So it had been shaped, but not tempered. And I brought it home, and I thought, well, I'm going to at least try it. So I sharpened it all up. On a piece of pine, that metal folded like it was tin foil. And what's miraculous, I think it is, you can take that same piece of steel, put it in some heat, bring it up to a certain color, certain temperature, but color is what they go by, and then quench it. You can quench it in water, you can quench it in oil, some quench it in air, but rapidly dropping the temperature causes the austenite particles and the martensite particles to change one into the other. Can't even remember anymore. I used to know all this. But what miraculously occurs is all of a sudden that piece of steel that wouldn't originally hold an edge, all of a sudden becomes very hard. Pretty cool. So if you've gone in and you have burned the edge of your tool, then
Quench it.
well, I don't know enough about it to tell you how to bring it back, but typically you only end up doing just the edge. That edge is no longer hard steel. It has been softened. The easiest way to do it, and I'm going to go ahead and do this because if you look and see, I don't know who used this, but you see what happened to that? How broken up that is?
That's certainly not the one that cut Frick.
No. No, he'd be bruised.
Haha.
So if I'm going to go in and fix this chisel, so if I've got a really bad chip or if I have discolored, you have 2 options.
Left side.
I could go in here and I could set the tool rest for 25 degrees and I could start the process of grinding back until I fix that edge or I get rid of that colored area. But the problem is that you're working with a very, very fine edge out here, which is very, very thin. There's no place for the heat to go and it heats up very rapidly. Or the better step is to come in here and blunt it off. Slight pressure. Square it up. Get rid of that broken area or get rid of that discolored area and then come in and go back to sharpening. What?
Yeah, I think you gotta twist it more this way.
And keep working that until you bring that back to a point. Now, I'm also working with a CBN wheel, which does a great job of absorbing a lot of that heat so that even after grinding like that, you can hold on to it. It's not hot. I mean, it's hot, but it's not burning me. So whether you're doing a repair from a bad chip or whether you're trying to get rid of an area that's been burned, that's the best way to do it. Best way, in my opinion. I always have to throw that in. Thanks, Ebby. We're gonna be talking about EOD tonight. Stay tuned. I'm gonna do that. Frick, how are our numbers?
We are at 771.
Okay, is that our peak?
Yeah, just about.
Okay. Yeah, give me your next question, please.
Okay, next question.
Pardon me, have you talked to Jeff yet?
Yep.
Okay. Give me a question while that thing is winding down, and then I'll do my presentation.
Okay, so we're going to bring Jeff on after this question?
Yes,
I'm ready.
please.
Okay. All right, this question comes from Matt Erb in Florida.
Matt in Florida?
Yeah, he says
I wish I was there. What's the temperature right now here?
It's here. Oh, I don't know. Chris, what is it
depressing.
here?
Negative 30, I think.
No,
Celsius.
you're
No,
dreaming.
no, just a second. So where is he in Florida?
It just says Florida.
Just says Florida. So
It's
right
minus
now,
13, Frank.
right now in
What about
New
the wind chill?
Brunswick,
It was negative 26 today, was the low.
right now in, oh no, it's only minus 13 Celsius. It's been colder. Chilly. In fact, I'm wearing pants because when I left the house this morning, it was minus 20. Question?
All right, Matt's question is, you cover making dowels for wood hinge boxes using a plain blade and jig in some of your videos.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on using a dowel plate instead? Are there
Oh.
any other methods you would consider?
Well, I've tried this. So what? It's Matt, right? What's Matt is talking about is this. This is called a dowel plate. So it's a 1/4-inch thick piece of steel, and it's got a series of holes in it. And if you were to look real close, this side is flared. So in other words, this is not 5/8. This is larger than 5/8. This is 5/8. So for about the first 1/16 of an inch, it is 5/8, and then it opens up a little bit. And the idea is, if you want to perfectly size a 1/4-inch dowel, you would turn your dowel, or whatever, you take your dowel, and then you would force it through there. And in forcing it through, it would work like a scraper. So it's best to polish this face up. That's a lot of work, by the way. Now, the problem is that unless you figure out some way of doing it, as the dowel's going through, it's all over the place. What I did is I drilled a 1/4-inch hole through a piece of wood about that thick, clamped it right on there so that as you're pounding this through, it's going through the wood, and that's keeping it straight on. It's actually a pretty good idea, Jake, because we might be able to resurrect some of that dowel we made that's a little bit oversized. Matt, this is a really good question, and because it's applicable now. Here's the issue you're going to deal with. Can you see this? You can get close on this. This is a piece of dowel I made out of maple, and it's got it coming right off of my little jig with the plain blade. This is nice and smooth. Usually when you pound it through here, you're not going to get nearly as smooth a surface. But if you take the time to go in there and polish that all up, you might get it a little bit better. But as long as you have something holding it so that it's not moving one way or the other, in other words, when it comes through the other side, it's straight. I'm going to experiment with that and see if we can't correct it, because some of the dowel we made, I mean, when we're doing it, we're trying to get it precise. We're aiming for 0.250. 0.252 means when you go to put it in the drill jig, it's going to leave a burnished area on it because it's too tight. And if you go too low, then it's going to be a little bit loose in there. So I'm going to see if we can't take some of the dowel that we've made that was a little bit heavy and try that and see if we can't perfect it.
Well, you've also drilled it through the dowel plate.
Did we do that one time?
Yeah.
And how'd that work?
I think it works well.
Did it leave spiral marks on it?
Well, it would, but they would be very close.
I'll try it. It's a good idea. Okay, so here's what I want to do. Got some stuff to. First of all, I want to acknowledge. I received this in the mail this week. Actually, it was probably a week ago. Terry Kirk sent this to me. I'll just read it real quick. RobCosman's Purple Heart Project. This $2,000 is a one-time donation to the Purple Heart Project from the Mid-Michigan Woodworkers Guild. President is Shane Breitzke. I apologize, I can't pronounce that.
And shouldn't pronounce it.
And thank you and good luck on the project. So $2,000 will go a long way in our Purple Heart project, and that is much appreciated. So thank you, Mid-Michigan Woodworkers Guild. Okay. So we have quite a few EODs in our list of friends. EODs, this is all stuff I've learned in the last 4 or 5 years.
They're the real soldiers.
According to Super Dave, the GOAT, EOD stands for Explosive Ordnance Disposal. So these are the guys that are trained to go out and diffuse explosive threats, whether it's an IED or whether it's a bomb dropped from a plane, a grenade, whatever. That's their job. Not a job that I would want, and not a job that you can afford to make a mistake ever. Well, in the process of doing that, I think of Kevin Burris, who my heart bleeds for. Kevin endured so many explosions and what's called overblast or overpressure, whatever it is. But it's the concussion from that blast that you think about football players who have had their head rattled numerous times. Well, Kevin's has been rattled so many times. I know it was over 150 blasts. And that takes its toll on you, and it's not repairable damage. Jeff O'Connor is also just retired. He just retired on December 31st. And Jeff was a Navy EOD. And before I do that, so out in Montana is...
Is he in Montana?
Yeah.
I thought he was in Costa Rica.
No, well, no, I'm not getting to him yet.
Oh.
Right now I'm talking about Austin Reese. So Austin came to our class. Can we pull up a picture, Frick? Can we get that picture on the wall of the bench that they made, that David in Alberta made for Austin?
They would have to send it to me, or someone would have to send it to me.
I can. So if you aren't familiar with this, I need to back up just a little bit. We run what's called the Purple Heart Project. We started this we started really in the summer of 2016, and we had no idea what we were doing. Fortunately, the work, we didn't have to know, it just works. But what we do now, barring COVID, 6 times a year, we host a 6-day workshop. We do one a month, from the month of May to the month of October. And in that 6-day workshop, 7 civilian spots are open, where you pay to come and take the class, and 7 spots are reserved for combat wounded veterans who have applied to our program and because of their situation have been accepted. When I say situation, meaning as a result of injuries sustained in combat, whether it be mental injuries or physical injuries, they have earned our, we respect them all. So what am I trying to say? They've earned our compassion, and we try to do something for them. And unbeknown to me, woodworking, hand tool woodworking is a very therapeutic activity. And it has the ability to calm your nerves. It has the ability to cause you to focus on something else. It's creative. It's wood. And wood is good. So, where'd I go? Where am I going with this? Anyway, that's what we do. Austin came to our class, and Austin was the EOD. I didn't remember this, but Austin was paralyzed in a parachuting accident, paralyzed from the waist down. So a year or so ago, we realized that even though we were sending these guys home, by the way, when we bring them in, we cover their airfare, we cover their hotel, we feed them all their meals, and we send each vet home with about somewhere between $400 and $4,500 worth of premium hand tools. So it's the same stuff that you see behind me. That's what we send them home with, including the stones. But they didn't have a bench. So thanks to Jack Lane and Chris Chahusky has come on board. Jack arranges through civilian volunteers so that every vet that comes to the class will have a bench delivered to his home so that he can go right to work. And we only started that after we'd already had 3 years of classes. So we've been going back trying to make contact with previous vets that haven't got a bench. And somehow we found Austin. But Austin's in a wheelchair, so a special bench had to be designed for him. So if you'll just pardon me for 1 second, I'm gonna pull this up and I'm gonna send it to Frick and have him post it. I was looking at it today, so I know it's right here. Jack, if you're watching, and if you can do this faster than me, if you can text that to Frick and get it up on the, so that these folks can watch this. But I want to tell you about David, and there it is right there. David lives in the wilds of Alberta. I got it right here. Let me just, Frick, I need to send it to your email. Yeah. Or your text. So I'm texting it to you.
That's no good.
Okay, so here it comes. So David, who had already built a bench for one of our other Canadian vets who had come to our class, Josh Briand out in BC, and he drove Jack, and who was with him? Who went with him? I hate to not give credit where credit is due. I apologize. Memory shot. Jack, if you're watching and you can come up with a name, please tell me. But Jack and a friend of his drove 10 hours.
Jack.
David and a friend drove 10 hours one way to personally deliver this to Josh and back. So when Austin came up, and Austin's in Montana, the closest volunteer we had, bench brigade member, was David, and David just no questions asked. David's also an architect, so David went to work on designing it, and he designed specifically this bench to accommodate Austin in a wheelchair. And it's completed. The delivery's in the process, and I just want you to be able to see it. But in talking with Austin and finding out that he was EOD, I didn't realize that he and Jeff were good friends. So Jeff O'Connor, who is one of the vets that I've been working with in our mastermind group, Jeff has started a business, and Jeff is in Virginia. O'ConnorWoodworking.com. Check that out. And I have asked Jeff to come on and explain exactly what an EOD technician does, the kinds of injuries that they are susceptible to, so that you can better understand just how banged up these guys end up being. Because I've got a big challenge for all of us. I've got one. He came to our class in 2017. His name is Dan McGinnis. And Dan is I would call Dan a severely wounded, combat wounded EOD technician, Navy. And he needs our help. So I'm going to put my heart where my mouth or my heart is, and I'll be the first one to pitch in. I'm going to do a lot of other stuff too. But sometimes giving, if it doesn't hurt a little bit, it hasn't caused us to stretch enough. And I'll take it from there. Or I'll pick it up there after done with Jeff. Is Jeff on?
Yes, he is.
Jeff, take it away, please, brother.
Frick, what am I doing?
Oh, okay, sounds good, Rob. I appreciate you having me on tonight. And I just wanted to say hello to everybody out there. And I'd like to begin by just saying that what Rob does for the Purple Heart Project changed my life in 2019. And I'm honored to be on here today to just talk a little bit about what EOD does. And so an EOD technician is an explosive ordnance disposal technician. And all four branches of the armed forces have EOD techs amongst their ranks. I'm in the Navy, so I was a Navy EOD tech, and one of our specialties in Navy EOD is we are also scuba divers as well as Mark 16 rebreather divers, so we can dive a bubbleless rig underwater. So we disarm explosive devices both on land and underwater, and we're also parachutists. So we can do rapid deployments into very remote areas to disarm explosive devices. Many of our brothers in the other branches are also parachutists as well. So usually EOD kind of breaks down into a couple areas, and the way I explain it to most people is picture a bomb squad that jumps and dives and works in a hostile environment. And with that, you get a lot of threats that can come across in a war zone, both from the enemy with their RPGs, small arms fire, rockets, as well as improvised explosive devices, which are probably the most damaging to us as a force. when Rob talked about some of the damage that you can get inflicted upon you as a EUD technician, you know, if you think about how a typical mission would go down in the Navy when I would be on deployment with one of the special operations teams, is we would go for an assault, and we would be leading a team in on the assault, typically with a dog and a sniper, and clearing explosive threats for the rest of the assault team so we can make it to our target. And along that way, you know, we're looking for either anti-personnel mines, we're looking for booby traps, car bombs, anything en route that could harm the force. So we would disarm those en route, or we would find another way to circumnavigate that. But our job in the beginning is to take care of the force. And that continues onto the target as well as leaving the target. So the threats are continuing throughout a terrorist assault. Now, along the terms of the improvised explosive devices, they're extremely powerful. The bosons produced, the blast overpressure produced by an explosive device that size, and they can range up to 1,500 pounds, 2,000 pounds. I've seen 5,000-pound car bombs. Incredible damage to an EUD technician, because we're generally the one person up there working on the device. And as far as the blast overpressure goes, you know, I've had friends get killed by it. I've had friends that lost limbs from it, and friends that were blinded by it, etc., as well as the fragmentation from those bombs. And if you think about a device that is so strong that it can rip your limbs off your body, imagine what that does to the brain. And that's where one of the biggest problems for EUD comes in is traumatic brain injury, which I've had. I know several other EUD technicians have had. Because if you think about how the brain sits in the skull, the brain is essentially like Jell-O in a bowl. And when that blast overpressure rips through your body, it's not only impacting your limbs, it's also impacting your organs as well as your brain very, very heavily. So the traumatic brain injury is a very, very common ailment among EUD technicians because of how many times that they're exposed to extreme blast overpressure in their careers. And science has now also tied a lot of the PTSD that people have to the brain injury as well. And I'm also diagnosed with chronic PTSD, which they believe was derived from multiple TBIs I've had over the years. So if you combine the physical and the mental injuries, they can be vast and ongoing and linger for the rest of your life. Some guys are paralyzed, like Austin. You know, I've got plenty of friends who are blinded. A good friend of mine, Taylor Morris, lost his arms and legs due to a bomb in Afghanistan. And it's an extremely hazardous job, but we are in the EUD community. We're honored to do it because we're the protectors. We feel, you know, on a deployment, on a mission, you know, we are the guys that are the shield for the rest of the force, and we take our training very seriously. We take our mission very seriously, and we're willing to carry the flag of our nation to do that. So, but along with that does come this cost, and I feel that nowadays the treatment that we get is world-class. And that's actually how I found out about the Purple Heart Project, was when I was getting traumatic brain injury treatment up near Washington, D.C., and they actually told me about Rob's course. But in a nutshell, that's, you know, traumatic brain injury, lots of physical injuries, and sometimes the most devastating is that PTSD. Our suicide rates are very high, not just in EUD, but in the military in general. Any other questions, Rob?
No, that's perfect, Jeff. Thank you. I appreciate
Yes, thank
that.
you very much.
That'll lead me into my next step. Thank you.
Honored to be here.
I'm
Thank
going
you,
to come
Rob.
back to you in a minute, though. Stay tuned.
Thanks, Jeff.
Where's Jake?
Just speak to the other
Over
camera
here?
first, yeah.
Okay, so can you put a link up there for me? Shoot. Did I send it to you? I'm going to send it to you right now.
Do you want me to, Jack Lane sent me the picture. Do you want me to show the,
Yes, can you show the picture?
Yeah, here it is.
So this is the bench that was built. You'll notice that there's one stretcher on the back, and that one stretcher on the back allows the wheelchair to get in, but it also had to be built in such a way that it would be sturdy enough with only the one stretcher. Now, I have, Frick, if I just give you my phone, can you figure it out? This is the video that I need you to link them to, okay? So Dan McGinnis came to our class, really nice guy. I had no idea how severe it was. I have only come to learn that out recently. But he put a video up about a month ago, and Jake called me and said, "Did you see the video that Dan posted?" Now, I had talked to Dan a couple times in the last year or so, and it's a very disturbing video, I'll warn you. It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch somebody in the middle of suffering. That's the part that's hard. But if you're really wanting to help, I think you need to watch it so that you can understand what we're trying to do. I really need, please contact me, Rob at RobCosman.com. If you know of any lawyers that specialize in helping vets collect what is owed to them from the Department of National Defense. And I remember my experience with Jesse, the original Jesse, and the amount of money that he was being paid as 100% disabled, I can't remember what his disability rating was, but living in California, in Los Angeles, ended up living on the street most of the time, $1,200 a month, imagine. And, I'd say to him, "Well, why don't you go?" I says, "I'm tired of fighting. I am where I am now because of fighting. I don't want to do it anymore." And it's a shame that these men and women are forced to constantly be fighting. Same thing in Canada. Same thing at all, exactly. Anyway, Dan needs our help. If anybody knows of a lawyer who would take this on and help him get what he's owed, please contact me. In the meantime, there's a definite financial help. They can't work. It's not like they don't want to work, it's that they can't work. And I don't understand it, and I don't think anybody that doesn't have PTSD could understand it. I've got two guys that work for me here that are both retired Canadian, medically retired vets. One was a tank commander blown up, and the other had multiple tours in Afghanistan. They work here, and I don't give them any grief at all. If they can't show up one day, no big deal. You just come when you can come. And they're both fantastic. That's Tony and Al. So here's what I'm going to do. We need to pitch in and do what we can to help, and it's a big amount. I'll tell you right now, what we really need is $350,000. We need at least $100,000. This has to do with his home that's in need of repair, and he's not in any position to be able to do it. But here's what I'm going to do. I'll kick in. RC Woodworking will kick in. I'll start it off with a $5,000 donation that'll come from me or our company. Second thing I'm going to do is this. We're going to auction off my standing desk.
Can you bring it into the frame a little better?
No, but where's my son? When I need him.
I think there was a baby emergency.
Oh, baby emergency. Well, that's a different story.
Do you need me to lift it, or can we?
Huh?
Can we move it?
Why, you can't see it from up there?
Well, you can't. You're not.
So if you haven't seen this before,
top.
it's been featured. So this is my favorite project to date. This is a standing desk. It has 3 drawers in here. I'm going to wait until Jake comes back, so then I'll show it off. But we've got a reserve bid on it. We'll auction it off to the highest bidder, and we'll put it on all the social media platforms we have. And 100% of the proceeds will go to helping Dan. So if you feel so inclined, and don't fear doing it publicly, because I live by this, quote, let your light so shine before men that they will see your good works. I'm just waiting for Jake. He's here now. That they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So there's a lot of crap going on in the world, so it's high time we did something good and let people know about it so they can be inspired to match it. I got a couple other things too that we're going to do to auction it off. I'm going to get Jake to go over here and we'll give you a good going over on this. I'd love to find it a good home. It's been sitting in my office for the last year, and I can detach myself from it. I love showing it to people when they come. Huh?
Yep.
Ready? So this is made out of cherry and holly. So cherry is domestic cherry, also referred to as black cherry. Holly grows, and I believe is harvested only in Maryland in the U.S. This is holly. It's a beautiful hardwood. It planes beautifully, and it's nice and white. So we designed this so that, we'll start up here. So these, your envelopes and your papers can stand vertically. You can move your sliders to whatever size you want.
It was horizontally.
Horizontal?
Horizontal on
On the
paper.
bottom one, yeah. And then if you could see in plan view, I use veneer so we can keep these surfaces stable, but I use the same piece of veneer. So the grain comes down here and continues down to here. The case and inside. The case is, of course, all dovetailed. There's a little catch right here for your papers. If you open it, it has a wooden hinge on the lid. My signature wooden hinge. You don't have to lock your drawers if they can't find them until you open them.
You should finish it before we.
I will. What he's referring to is the fact that I haven't finished the bottom of this one, but it's not a big deal. I can get that done. And then there's little pieces in there so that you can easily clean it out. Everything, anytime there's a piece coming through, it's through wedge tenons, and the wedges are made out of holly as well. You see them here, you see them down there, you see them on the bottom. Then there's two drawers here. And when these drawers, there's a little trap door underneath. So you open the trap door, you open the drawer, you close the trap door, and if your customer needs a pencil or pen, that little drawer pops out, and there's a little tray there to put your pen and pencils. And then it's the same thing over here on this side. All your stationery has a trap door as well. You close your trap door. Which way? I always get it backwards. And then that pops out your little drawer over on this side that actually has a pen in it. Beautiful piece. I really like it. Really like it. The whole thing, the whole build is on our online workshop. So let us know if you're interested in bidding on it. We'll, like I said, we have a reserve bid. I don't think we're going to disclose what the reserve bid is. At least we haven't decided yet. But
I think we'll make it into an auction on the site.
a what? An auction on the website?
And you don't have people just
Okay.
sending in.
All right, that's what we'll do, and we'll just keep talking about it. With the amount of money that we need to raise, it's gonna take a few weeks. Oh, so yeah, I'm also going to throw into that, for that specific purpose. I corresponded with Dan today, by the way. So several months ago, I received from, remember his name? Mike Decker. Mike sent me a box full of Brazilian rosewood. And if you know anything about Brazilian rosewood, you cannot trade in it any longer unless you have the paperwork to prove that this lumber was harvested before the embargo, and we have that. So I'm going to make as many dovetail saws as I can get out of this, and we will auction those off, and they will go also to this Save Dan Fund. And I'll get to work on that. I actually talked to Mike just recently, and I said I was just waiting for the right project and the right time, and now that it's crossed my path, we'll go ahead and do it. So if you feel like being a part of this, which I'm sure you do, you can make donations at any time towards it. If you want to bid on that, you can do that as well. But this man deserves our help. And the government's not helping him, so we got to step up. And I'm happy to do whatever I can. Now, is Jeff still there?
He's not on the call, no.
Well,
He's watching.
Jeff, on a little lighter note, I was just wondering if maybe there was a video where people could watch you parachute, and if you'd be willing to put the link out there.
There's a delay, so he'll.
There's a delay.
I'll let you know when he answers.
Hopefully that video will make its way.
Ooh, Frick could even play it.
It'll be self-explanatory. All right, next question.
All right, we have a question.
Wait a minute, did I forget to thank anybody else? Got to say hello to Angie, and I also have to give my introduction. Angie is Ken's cousin, and this is Angie. Angie works with us. She does all the packaging. She and her sister Lynn do all the packaging of our T-shirts. So when you get a Purple Heart T-shirt from us, there'll be a little seal up there, and it'll have her picture and her signature on there. Actually, I'll answer a few more questions, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk to you about Bob Abbott's website, and Kevin Burris, and Danny Bell, and Jeff.
Well, before I ask the question, I think it is a good time to mention that Danny has created us a new Instagram account specifically for
Purple Heart.
the Purple Heart. So I have the link on the screen, instagram.com/RobCosman.PHP. It just started, so make sure you go over there if you're on Instagram, and that way you can follow along with everything that's going on in the PHP.
Yeah, we actually want to highlight all the vets that combat wounded vets that have been in our program. So we really want to get you on there. And I'm also going to put out an informal call now. We'll make it more formal shortly. This is an example of 2 items I have right here. So Bob Abbott, thevintageveteran.com. Bob makes these cutting boards. What's this called?
Tumbling block.
Tumbling blocks. He's actually experimenting with some really cool ones. And Bob has already said that he plans to donate several of these to be auctioned off, proceeds to go to help Dan. Jeff makes these shave brushes. This is badger hair shave brush. I haven't used mine today, but Bo will give me a shave tomorrow.
The badger's still alive.
The badger's still alive, that's right. He has yet to be shorn. This is the bowl, and it's my highlight of my week is when I pay my son Bo. I lay out, he does the hot towel bit and gives me a shave, and it is the most relaxing thing. So Jeff will donate that. Kevin, we haven't decided exactly what he's doing, but Kevin does incredible laser engraving on both plaques, on granite, on wood. And Danny Bell is just in the process. I can't let the cat out of the bag, so I can't tell you what Danny's doing just yet, but it's in the works. And I also wanted to welcome Ahmed to our program. I know Ahmed has stuff that he's going to want to donate to for this, because that's just the kind of guy that he is. So we'll make this happen. Don't forget to register for our draw tonight. Big hello to Moose, who just was operated on Thursday, but he's home recovering. Everything went well. And don't forget to visit patssecretgarden.com if you need a dead cat sweater to keep you warm on these very cold nights. Frick, next.
All right. I had a question here. This is from Bill in Montana.
Hey, Bill.
He says, what type of wax do you use that prevents glue from spreading to the wrong place for the wood hinge box?
Oh, you don't need to use this because it's unbelievably expensive, but I like it just because I have it, and it works nicely. It's a medium hard paste wax. This is Renaissance, but that little can back then was $30, so I can't imagine what it is now. But even when it's not terribly warm, it's still soft enough that you can apply it with a Q-tip. And somebody asked me the other day about if you've seen me on that wood hinge box video, I use those precision tip Q-tips for spreading the glue and also for spreading the wax. Where do we get them, Jake?
Anywhere?
No, you can't get them anywhere. They're made by...
Well, Q-tip makes them.
Q-tip makes them, but they're pointed and they're hard points.
Precision tip Q-tip.
They're called precision tips. I don't know where you're going to get them.
They're for eyeliner and stuff. So
yeah, Frick uses them for eyeliner because he has to be made up.
Yes.
But I don't know what normal people use them for. Pointed ears, maybe? Spock? What's up, Frick? Next.
All right. Next question comes from Cliff Pollock in Ithaca, New York.
Hey, Cliff.
He says, any suggestions on extending bandsaw blade life? For example, can you resharpen a bandsaw blade?
Yeah, you can, but why would you? And I say that only because they're what do we pay for bandsaw blades?
15.
$15 for a bandsaw blade, and to go through and they used to sharpen them, but they're so inexpensive today, it's hardly worth it. I've never sharpened one, and I can't imagine ever bothering to, simply because they're that inexpensive. Next, Rick.
Wait, tell them about what you were going to buy just recently.
Yeah, on this auction site I watched, there was a bandsaw blade welder. So I said, I called Jake, I said, there's a bandsaw blade welder for sale. Should we grab it? He said, how many times have we ever welded a bandsaw blade? And I said, yeah, it's not such a great idea. So I passed on it. Next, Rick.
All right, next one comes from Barry in Ozark, Missouri.
Hey, Barry.
When using different woods for a box, is there any combination to avoid?
Yeah, there is. So if, I don't know where Med's going to put this. So our friend Med, how do you pronounce Med's last name?
Ishmael?
Ismail?
Med's down in Southern California, and Med's my supply of.
You're pronouncing his
of
first
great
name
wood.
wrong anyway.
Oh yeah, because according to Luther, it's a mead. Med just did a dozen? A dozen boxes using dovetailed wood hinge boxes with exotic woods, and the color contrast was incredible. So I'll get him to post it somewhere, and we'll provide you with a link, but you really need to see it. My suggestion is, and I've kind of gone the route, gone the full circle on this. Can we see any up thing? I don't even have anything contrasting here. Well, here's one. I can't reach much over 5 feet. So here's a piece of Macassar ebony and figured maple. So I would suggest that if you're going for a contrast, go for a very strong contrast. Obviously black on blonde. What you want to avoid, and I do have it here. If you can, I can't get at it because it's way up there, but if you look way up here, there's a cherry hall table that has a drawer on either end. And I taught that in a class in 2003. It was made entirely with hand tools, start to finish. But I used mahogany on the drawer sides and bird's eye maple for the drawer front. Well, you know what? If I held that right like this, you would not be able to see the dovetail. The color of the end grain of the maple and the color of the face grain or the long grain of the mahogany are so similar, you cannot see it. So you want to avoid a very weak contrast. And I'll say one more thing that's a little off topic, but Padauk will bleed. So if you try to use orange Padauk with a blonde wood, the finish will cause the orange to bleed and it'll get onto your white wood. So you kind of have to be careful. When I said I've come full circle, I'm finding myself more interested in doing something like this, which is all yew, or all me. That little bit of blonde right there is the sapwood of the yew. And there's enough contrast in the end grain of the yew, I think, to show off the joint. That one's a piece of, now that's, looks like two different woods, but this is English walnut, and I just used the heartwood and the sapwood, so it's the same piece of wood, and that did give you some contrast. And this one, which hasn't got a finish on it yet, and it still has to be sanded a little bit smoother, but this is a piece of cherry, and the end grain of the cherry will stand out enough that sometimes subtle is better. I've built furniture when I first started. I did a lot of contrasting pieces, but after a while, it's like, whoa, it's almost too much. Like, it's right in your face. I think I like the subtleness of just the end grain of the same species. It's up to you, of course, but you asked my opinion. I just gave it to you.
Using exotic wood for the hinge, though.
Yeah, okay, so when you are making wood hinges, you have to, you're advised to avoid exotic woods for the hinge because they don't glue very well. They're very difficult to make the dowel, but the single biggest problem is getting it to actually glue and adhere. So when I was doing boxes professionally, by that I mean I was making them with the intent on selling them, which I'm actually going to do again for fun. I got into the habit of always using maple on the back, on the front, on the lid. That would allow me to use the dowel always out of maple. And then your contrast came on the two end pieces that would show off the
Which
joint.
are typically smaller anyway.
Which were smaller, so it utilized, it stretched, lessened the cost. But you always had a really good joint because you had maple on maple with the dowel. Much easier to make too. Just walk over here for a minute and I'll just show you some really pretty wood and I'll just give you some idea of what this stuff costs. So I've got a corner right here thanks to a med. What, 5,000? Somewhere in the neighborhood? There's a lot of money sitting right there in different woods. Here's a piece of, lovely piece of Vera wood, also known as goat wood. Here's a piece of snake wood, which is listed as the most expensive exotic wood available. I don't know what it is per pound, but that probably weighs 7 pounds.
Oh, it's actually a lot heavier than you think.
Might even be more than that. Really heavy stuff. I'll show you some more. Here's some Baston walnut. I don't know if you can even get a price on that. There's some king wood. There's some of the most colorful Macassar ebony, which makes a beautiful saw handle. Here's some some figured quartered koa from Hawaii. I've got some zircote. Here's some black and white. Here's some, oh, look at me, just going crazy here. Here's some pink ivory. These are the natural colors. Beautiful wood, extremely expensive. Here's some black and white ebony, which makes a gorgeous saw handle if you can get it in pieces that you can actually work. I've got some Gaboon ebony here. I've got another piece of zircote. I've got some cocobolo, lots of stuff. But if you look at this piece over here, so here's some bird's eye that I got from Mel up in Ontario at Exotic Woods. And if you look real close on that, you see the bird's eye, even though it's in the rough. Well, here's the piece that's even better. All of those little spots right there are bird's eye. This is, if I ran that through the planer, that would be absolutely polluted. Now here's a piece over here. Where's that piece of?
Right there.
I got a piece
Keep
of
going.
pink ivory. Well, this isn't the piece I was. This isn't the piece I was pointing out. I don't remember what this one cost, but I've got a piece of pink ivory here somewhere. Where is it?
What do you mean? Isn't that it?
No, that's not the one. That's $1,170. Oh, it is right there. It's right there behind the bird's eye. Here's a piece of pink ivory. Now the board was about 1.5 feet longer than that. I cut part of it off, so there was 50 pounds of it, and that was the price, $1,170. How did we get talking about that?
I assume it's because you were talking about this.
About contrasting woods and a med stuff, yeah. So just, do what looks good. I guarantee you'll change your mind over time, but you got to start somewhere. Next, Frick.
Okay, next one comes from
Keep it short, Frick.
Stephen Rutland in Alabama.
Hey, Stephen.
He says, what kind of rust remover, my green screen's busted. What kind of rust remover would you use when restoring a hand plane?
Well, you can use the chemical approach. What did we use that time?
Crud cutter.
Crud cutter. Oh, yeah. I did a video. What was it called? Go to my channel, Rob Cosman, and just scroll through. And I took an old 4.5 Stanley Bedrock, 604.5, and I restored it completely. And you'll walk through the whole process. Crud cutter. We used crud cutter, which you could just leave it in, and when it came out, all the crud was gone. But the single best piece of a tip I can give you is this. So I don't know if I have this. I don't have one on the sleeve.
No.
So this is made by Klingspor, and it's called a sanding block.
No, it's called Sandiflex.
Sandiflex. Yeah. That's what Loser calls it? Yeah. It's actually called Sandflex, but he puts the duh in there because of where he's from. You can't go wrong. This is a rubber compound that has a silicone carbide abrasive all the way through it. And you can get them in 3 different grits. The color scheme is green, red, and yellow. I'm sorry. Red, green, and yellow. Red is coarse, green is medium, yellow is fine. The green matches best the level of surface quality that you're going to get on hand planes and saws and whatever. But I'll just show you real quick. If I can grab something here that's got a bit of rust on it. Oh, I know that router plane just picked up. So here's an original Stanley router plane. I was actually looking for this the other day. And I don't know why, but it was sitting over there and it got rust on the bottom. So if I take this Sandiflex and just give it a rub, it doesn't take a whole lot of work to bring that back. I prefer not to do that on my bench, but anyway, they're only $5 or $6, something like that. $4? We got lots of them in stock, and everybody that has a plane should have one of those on hand, or a couple of them, just because they work so well. In fact, I'm using it on my table saw too. In fact, I'm going to try that right now because that'll actually get it done.
Is that the green one, though?
This one is?
I don't know.
Well, I know this one is. Once you take them out of your sleeve, you can't really tell, but we usually only ever use the green. Where was the rust? Oh, it's over here. Yeah. But it just does a great job, and it works fast. One more. There you go. Sandiflex. We should actually change that name.
Sandiflex.
Sandiflex. Frick?
Yes.
Another one.
All right. Okay, this comes from Stuart in Australia.
Hey, Stuart.
He says, I am planning the design and materials for my workbench build, which will take the Schoberg vise I purchased through you. Should the job be made from a hardwood, or can it be anything other than a softwood?
Should the jaw be hardwood? You can use anything. In fact, you could even use a couple pieces of plywood, glue it up out of plywood if you had to, if you didn't have access to solid wood. But yeah, anything. If it's softwood, I would probably make it a little bit thicker to make it a little stiffer. So that's not a worry. Softwood, plywood glued together, hardwood, whatever. Just make sure it's nice and flat so that it meets. And you want to do it, pay attention to the way we did it in the video. Clamp it in place before you bolt it in from the bottom side. And you'll see what I mean, so that it's aligned with the end of your bench, so that when you're clamping a board, it's actually pulling it tight all the way across the face. I want to talk just for a second. So I've been working, we put together a mastermind group, which if you thought of the concept of 5 minds are better than one. And in the group is Ahmed, recently joined us, Bob Abbott, combat wounded Air Force, Kevin Burris. Kevin's an EOD who suffered tremendously from multiple blasts, well over 100. I think it's actually over 150. Kevin Burris is in upper state New York. Danny Bell. Danny was a job. Danny retired as a Chinook helicopter pilot, Special Forces, and combat wounded. And Danny is in Maine. Recently moved to Maine, not far away. And Jeff O'Connor. And Jeff just retired December 31st from being a Navy EOD. And these guys are all starting businesses. The next step in their life. And I just thought, you know what, I could, as I told them, I said, I may not be able to tell you what to do, but I can tell you a lot of things not to do. So we brainstorm, and we have a meeting twice a week where we help one another solve problems and move forward. So I like to promote their businesses. So we buy their wares and we give it away here when we do our online workshops. But I'm also going to suggest to you that if you're looking for first of all, if you're a patriot and you, like me, believe that these people, we are in debt to these people, then why not support their business? So if you want to buy a unique wedding gift, anniversary gift, Christmas, birthday, whatever the occasion happens to be, I'm going to suggest that you go to their site. Now, we've got them posted on our website. So if you go to RobCosman.com, there'll be a link on there somewhere in the top banner, but we're going to go a step further. Well, I can't tell you about what we're doing just yet, but we're working on it. Anyway, you can go to thevintageveteran.com, and that's Bob Abbott. I'm going to do these in alphabetical order. So this is one of Bob's cutting boards. This is called I keep wanting to call it the Drunken Sailor, but I think it's just called the Drunken Cutting Board. And there's a tremendous amount of work in that if you look at the joinery and really appreciate what you're getting. And Bob also does this one and several others. And you go on there and you'll see them on his site. You can order from him directly, or you might be lucky enough tonight to get one of these in our draw. Jeff makes, Kevin's next, B. So Kevin Burris, B-U-R-A-S, woodworking.com. And Kevin does cutting boards as well. Kevin does a lot of urns, and he's really into laser etching of wood. So you go on there and you'll see the stuff that he does, which I've got a little job for him that he's doing for me. And I don't have any of Kevin's wares yet. We're working on that. And then if you go, Danny, wait a minute, Bell would have been first. But anyway, messed that one up. So Danny's not quite ready yet. He doesn't have his website yet, but that's coming. And then the last of the four is going to be Jeff, and that's o'connorwoodworking.com. And really good site. And you go on there and you look at his Irish kiss sticks. You look at his shave brushes, which I think are cool. Lots of stuff on there. So do me a favor and do an honor to them and patronize their business if you can find it in your list of things you are looking for. Now, Ahmed just joined, and Ahmed doesn't have a website yet, but when you see his boxes, you'll understand why he needs to have one. Okay, next, Frick.
All right, next one comes from, where'd it go? Comes from Danny in Australia, another Australian one.
Hey, Danny.
What brands of files would you use to sharpen your finer tooth saw? I have only been able to access file that leave a very shallow rounded gullet. Thank you.
Can't give you the answer to that just yet. We have some samples on the way.
No.
I thought we did.
Trying to, but no.
We're in the process of trying to find some, and it's not easy. How many professional shop filers do you know today? There aren't any. So when the professional demand goes away, the professional supply goes with it. So we will have them on our site as soon as we can find them, and we are actively pursuing that. So I apologize for not being able to give you something, but hopefully something is out there. We've heard rumor that there's some good ones still available, and we're looking to get them. Next, Frick.
James Mack in Shelby, North Carolina.
Hey, James.
What product do you use for a wood filler?
Next.
Don't do wood filler. If I had to save something and there was a void, I would. Well, I'll give you my one example of a wood filler. So it was December 24th, and I'm going to guess and say that this would have been 1999. Might actually have been 2000. No, I'm sorry. It would have been 2001. And I had just installed the kitchen, one of the last pieces of a kitchen for a friend of mine named Steve Korskadden. This is a beautiful kitchen. 52 drawers, all dovetailed by hand. Took me 16 months to build. Made out of cherry. All shaker-ized pieces. Lovely kitchen. And I was trying to get this last piece put together for them for the Christmas. And I was drilling. I was combining it. So it was, what we did is we took pieces of shaker furniture, we kitchenized them, but then we had to connect them all together. So you'd almost have to see it. I'll get some pictures of it. But anyway, I had to screw these two pieces together. And as I was drilling through the first piece, I was thinking I should have a stop on my drill. And then I was thinking, no, I know how far deep I have to go. And all of a sudden, boom, right out through the side of the cabinet. Oh, my. So what I did, I found a solid cherry knot, small knot, and I went in and I took the hole and I shaped it with a round file so that instead of it being round, it was somewhat oblong, or not terribly oblong, but the shape of the actual knot is. And I went in and I shaped that knot so that I fit that knot into that hole and flushed it off and put a coat of lacquer on it so that it just looked like it was a little wee pin knot in a piece of cherry, which would be perfectly acceptable. But to use any kind of a wood filler or sawdust and glue, there are people that do that, but I don't do that. I just find that I've got to be fussier than that. So hope that doesn't come off making me sound like a snob, but that's just not my cup of tea. Go ahead, Frick.
I was just noticing that Jack Lane delivered the workbench to Tiffany earlier today. Did you see that?
No, I didn't. I thought Tiffany already had hers.
No.
Tiffany is one of 3 combat wounded female vets that we had in our class. Tiffany's down in Texas.
Yep, she was in.
I had Tiffany on, and she came and spoke one night. People were very impressed. So where can people go to see that? Well, I'll make sure Danny gets that, pictures of that, and Danny will put that on our new Instagram page and Danny's actually managing my Instagram page on there as well, or site, or whatever you call it.
Frick, can we switch?
Switch cameras?
Okay, next one, Frick.
Okay, next one comes from Benjamin in Ottawa.
Hey, Benjamin,
And he says,
fellow Canadian.
I made 1/4 inch panels from solid pine and one has cupped severely after I brought it inside. Is there anything you would do to correct the cup?
Okay, I caught a piece of that. Say that again, please.
Hi, Rob. I made 1/4 inch panels from solid pine, and one has cupped severely after I brought it inside. Is there anything you would do?
1/4 inch panels. I don't know how big they are, but I mean you can take unless you're planning to leave this, unless you're planning to use it as a panel, not in a frame. To take a 1/4 inch panel and straighten it out takes no effort whatsoever. So if it's going into a frame and you're figuring out how to do it, well, just bend it and put it in your frame. It takes very little effort to flatten out a cup. You cannot stop the expansion or contraction, but the cupping that occurs. And so if it's going into a frame like this, this is we've been doing a lot of shop furniture in our online workshop. So this door goes in the bottom of this little base cabinet. So that's a relatively thin, it's probably 5/16 inch thick piece of Douglas fir sitting in a pine frame. And as wide as that is, that cupped a little bit, but when you put it into the frame, it straightens it right out. You leave enough room in the bottom of each groove so it allows for that expansion. If you have a piece of wood, a panel that's going to be used just as, if it's going to be used just like that, with no treatment, then what you can do, if it's cupped like this, so you got to think about this for a second. As the moisture leaves unevenly, meaning if you were to sit this on the floor, this has a lot more exposure to the air, the drying air or the moist air, than the piece laying flat on the bottom. So as this surface gives off moisture, all the fibers are going to pull tight, and as they pull tight, this is going to have a tendency to cup up. If this side was sitting on damp concrete and it was absorbing moisture, then as this surface, as these fibers absorb wood, they're going to push out and expand, and it's going to cause the board to cup like this. So if it was cupped like this, I need to even it out. I could lay the cup side down on a damp surface like your basement floor and watch it, because it would get moisture unevenly and it would eventually flatten itself out. But just know in advance that it may continue to do that. So you might get it flat for a day and it might not be flat tomorrow, but you could put a breadboard end on it and that would prevent it from cupping. Next, Rick. Watch our time. What's our count?
We're at 810. Or did you mean donations?
Oh, I meant people.
Okay.
What are donations? Do you know?
Yeah.
So are we going to set up a special fund page on our?
Yeah, a lot of people are asking how they're going to be able to bid on an auction.
Yeah.
It would be an auctionable item.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. I had to introduce, I got to get started on this somehow. But what we'll do is we will set up some kind of something so that you can donate to help Dan. His name is Dan McGinnis. Did you get his website, his YouTube,
Yep.
YouTube video he did up?
Yes.
Yeah, the YouTube video is up there. Correspond with me. He actually leaves his correspondence on there too. You can correspond with him directly. If you need to contact me, I'll make myself available 7 days a week when it comes to helping Dan. Okay, next, Frick.
Okay, last question comes from Jim in Corona,
Hey, Jim.
California. He says, with larger sheets of plywood, say 30 inches plus on a table saw, it is easy to get the opposite sides parallel. But do you have any tips for getting adjoining sides perpendicular? Obviously, a miter gauge won't work.
Okay, I sometimes have to hear that twice so I can put in, read it again, please, so I can figure out exactly what he's asking me.
With larger sheets of plywood,
Yeah.
say 30 inches plus on a table saw,
Yeah.
it is easy to get opposite sides parallel. But do you have any tips of getting adjoining sides perpendicular? Obviously, a miter gauge won't work.
Yeah, a sled. We did a video, we did a YouTube on building a crosscut sled. I'll pull it out so you can see it. So here's my crosscut sled, and it's got two Purple Heart runners that go in the miter gauge tracks. Now you can make these as big as you want. And I've got one more answer for you too. So mine has 21.5 inches. And if you need it bigger than that, you can make it bigger than that. You don't necessarily need a back piece on it if you wanted to make it so it was it wasn't limited at all. You would just have to make sure that the front piece was really sturdy to help keep it in line because you've cut through it. The other thing to do, so if I had a large piece and now I needed to make it perpendicular, you could get your square out and get your hand plane, and you can plane one edge, the end, to be square to the parallel sides. It's not hard. Check it with your square. Once you get it right, then you can go over to your table saw and keep that side tight to the fence and rip and make your pass so that you can get both ends now parallel to each other. So it's all doable. Sometimes you just got to think it through. That requires that you learn how to sharpen and get yourself a good plane and get familiar with it. The hand plane is the most efficient tool in the shop, bar none, because it will allow you to get to within 0.5 thousandth of an inch when it comes to precision. It will allow you to plane a surface to a point where you don't need to use sandpaper. And what other tool can dimension and at the same time leave a finished surface? None. And if you say a thickness sander, poo. You'll never get a sanded surface to compete with the hand plane surface. Okay, what's up, Frick? You're all panicking over there. What's going on?
Oh, nothing.
What happened?
Oh, wait. Yeah, there we go. All right, wrap it up.
Did Jeff put in his parachuting video?
He sent it to me and I pasted it, yes.
Good. It's funny.
Okay, we're good.
We're done? Oh, yeah, we're done. Thank you, folks.
Wait, are we doing a draw?
Yeah, we're going to do our draw. Make sure you register for draw. I forgot to give shout-outs to vets. I apologize. I had to concentrate on one particular guy that really needs our help. And I am begging you, please be generous and help me help Dan McGinnis get through this. You watch the video, you'll understand what I mean. Okay, what are we giving away? We're giving away our 3 dead cats. You have a choice of either a dead cat sweater, the little happy jacket. What do we call those?
Happy sweater.
Happy little kid's happy sweater, handmade
Why
in
are you
Peru.
looking over there?
Am I looking here? I never know. You guys, you're supposed to put the light on. There's no light on.
Frick took all my power from my lights.
Or our so three either dead cat sweater, the golf shirt with the Purple Heart logo on it, or the happy sweater.
And 2 main.
And a big shout out to Moose, who's at home healing, convalescing. He'll be back here. I suspect he'll be back on our next one. Pat'sSecretGarden.com. Love to have you support him. He's been a big support of us.
All right, we ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Dead cat first.
Dead cat first. Chances of winning tonight, 1 in 600. First winner is... drum roll sound. First winner is Don McMurray in Ohio.
Don, stay warm, brother. Tell us your size.
Next. Also dead cat.
Yep.
Yep.
For the choice.
Brandon Lawrence in Washington, United States.
Congratulations, Brandon. Pardon me for yawning. Late night, early morning. Next.
And third is Greg Tokley in Ontario, Canada.
Hey, Greg. He'll definitely need it.
Okay, what's next?
And did we break 2,000?
Yeah.
So 2 big gifts. So we'll give away a Bob Abbott, the vintage veteran. What's it called, Jake?
Tumbling block.
Tumbling block shooting. What do you want to call it? Shooting board, cutting board, and we'll give away a Jeff O'Connor shave brush and bowl with the soap. So let's do the tumbling block first. Who's that going to?
Brian in Mississippi.
Hey, Brian in Mississippi. Congratulations, brother.
Mississippi.
And the shave brush and bowl.
Shave brush and bowl are going to Dwayne Stig in New York.
Hey, Dwayne. Lovely shave. You'll love it. Okay, that's it. Don't forget, we'll put it on here so that you can bid on this desk, and it can become part of your furniture. I've signed it on here. I've signed it somewhere. I'll find out where it was. If I haven't, I'll make sure it gets signed. And yeah.
Completed.
I actually would love to keep it, but it's necessary. It's really necessary. Please look into our Purple Heart project so that you can understand what we do and why we do it. We will see you in 2 weeks. Stay warm and have fun. See you.